Hey, everybody, and welcome to Mortisect. Today, we have a really special guest. Her name is Ellie Parker, and she is a rising actor in the film scene, in particular, horror films. One of her breakout roles was in Bones and All, and she played Jackie, and that is the film with Timothy Chalamet. And you might also recognize a couple of other mainstay actors. She's also been in other films, including The Bloody Man, Echo Rhyme, and many more. Definitely check her out on IMDb. Ellie, thank you so much for coming on the show, and it really is exciting. And I guess the first thing I want to ask you is, how did you get into acting? I always like to ask that because it's so personal and there's so many different stories that you hear. But what really drove you into the acting profession?
Was really young. I wanted to be a dancer, and then I decided to be in a play at my school when I was about 10, and it was a contest. So all the schools in my district would do a short little, and my school actually won. And then after that, a director locally came up to me and he said he was making a short and he wanted me to be in it. And so that's just kind of how it's taken off from there. I've been really lucky to do a lot of other film opportunities since then.
Now, going to Bones and All, because I know that is such a big film, and again, anything with Timothy Chalamet and the list of actors that were in it, that's really exciting. So, could you tell us a little bit of how you secured the role of Jackie and how it was the first day on set on this major film?
I got the role, I got the audition. All the auditions were through self tape for all the supporting actors. So I never went into a room with a casting director. It was all on tape. And so um, I got the audition, and it didn't say a name. It didn't give really any information at all. It just said SAG feature set in the 80s. This director, I remember this, it said this director doesn't want an actor, he wants real people. So don't slate, don't use a fancy background, just pretend like you're not even an actor and do the scene. And I actually read for the character of Kim, who is the girl who gets her finger bit off
Oh,
in the
yes,
in
yes.
that first scene. Yeah, I read for her, and then several weeks went by, so I thought I didn't get it, and then I got the call that they wanted to book me as Jackie. And so that was really awesome. I still didn't know anything at this point. And then I went to my fitting, and that's when I kind of found out everything and was really shocked. And then the first day on set was just, there was not any downtime really. The moment I arrived till the moment I left, it was through the night as well because it's a nighttime scene. Uh, at like 7 p.m. Started getting ready. I was in my trailer for maybe 30 minutes before they were ready. And then I think I left at like 5 in the morning. But
Wow.
yeah, it was very fast, very quick. The only time I really had a break was when the girl who did play Kim, Madeline, she had to get her prosthetic put on, and that was really the only gap I had of break time.
And that's a memorable scene. I know it's in the beginning, but it really establishes Marin's character as, being a cannibal. And what I thought was cool too is that I know it must be hard when you don't really have lines, and then you have to act this out of being, exuding that teenage spirit. And then what I thought was cool is at the end of the scene, you get a really cool close up and your reaction, which really said everything. So I really like that, that sometimes it might feel a little bit hard if you don't have lines to rely on. But really good acting, you're supposed to do both. Not only be able to say lines convincingly, but also do the physicality of the part, which I think can be an issue for a lot of people because it can come off really corny, if somebody makes this exacerbated, like, this face. But I thought you did so well in that. And when you finished that scene, did you feel good about your performance? Did you want to see it right away? Did they show you what happened in that scene right away?
You mentioned that little reaction shot because what actually happened was my character threw up at the sight of this girl's finger being bit off. And so they had this like sippy cup of stuff for me to hold in my mouth, and then I vomited on this tarp on the ground. And it ended up being cut, which made me very, very sad. But no, they didn't show me afterwards. But yeah, there's just a room of like 100 people in dead silence that are staring at you.
There is that difference when you're doing an independent film or a very low budget film and then doing a major motion picture. So, tell me the difference because I did mention it. I think it was called Scarytales and Bedtime Stories, and you played Terry.
Please don't hurt me. I'm so scared.
And I'm not saying it because you're here. I definitely thought that you were the best actor in it. And in your role, I know you mentioned that you work in a lawyer's office. I read that. So it was perfect because you already had the experience.
Good morning, Mr. Powell. Is everything okay?
But tell me, what was the difference? And I kind of already have a feeling, but I'd like to hear it from you. What did you find was different from Bones and All, and then going to a smaller film where you do have a bigger role? But what's the difference between that experience?
I think the biggest difference is that when you're on a small indie set, there's not that many people in the cast and crew. I love the behind the scenes part of it too. But
Mm.
there was something really nice about working on Bones and All where I could just be there and just be an actor. I didn't have to, you know, worry about technical aspects of that, even though I love that stuff.
Mhm.
So I think that was the biggest difference. But also, like I had said before, I had a tiny little moment of intimidation when I did that one shot where I had to throw up. And in that moment, I kind of had to give myself a little pep talk and be like, this is not the time to hold back, not the time to be embarrassed or inhibited. And I just had to go for it and give it my all. And that's not something you always get when you're on an indie set because it's a room of like 10 people.
Yeah, it's almost like a boot camp for film because there are people that are doing the indie films. A lot of them are just beginning, and you're going to see mistakes made, and there's certainly limitations. I know one of them. I usually have a show where I have my co-hosts, and two of them are actors. And they were mentioning because one of them was in a B film, like a horror film, and they were saying about the script, how scripts, when you're an actor, if you can pick a really good script, it makes the acting easier. Now, I'm not throwing any shade or saying anything, but when you have certain films, and especially horror, it can be really hard to write the dialogue convincingly. So, do you find that sometimes as a challenge? And how do you rise above that challenge?
I think the best way to overcome that is specificity. Everything that they say and do, and justifying that, whether you're doing an audition and all you have are like 3 pages of sides, or if you're working on a full character and you have to read the whole movie script, I think you just have to really be specific. I think I'm very much someone who pulls from my own experience. It's not just like using my imagination with acting like some actors are, I know, and I think there's definitely a place for that and you have to do what works for you. But I think the thing that helps me when there's a script that isn't super strong is just pulling from my own experiences and saying, okay, how am I like this person? How is their experience like mine? And how have I acted in these situations and how can I bring that to this?
Mm. Now, you did mention about enjoying the behind the scenes as well as being in front of the camera. And I did notice on IMDb that you've done other stuff behind the scenes. Do you see yourself eventually moving into maybe a position where you still act, but you can maybe you go into writing or directing or even producing?
I worked as a unit production manager on a film a couple of years ago. It was actually around the time that I did Bones and All, and I really loved it. I loved helping the director set up the shots. I loved deciding how to tell the story in a visual way, and I thought that was cool. But also, I am in school, and my degree is in literature with a minor in creative writing. So I would love to put my writing skills to use one day and write a screenplay or something to that effect because, whenever I watch a great show or a great movie, my first thought is always like, I have written that because it's so good. And there's just something universal, something great about watching something that's universal. So, yeah, I can definitely see myself venturing more behind the scenes in the future. But for now, I love to do both.
I think it's at really the best time to be an actor and a creator because you have all these streaming services. And in one of a couple of my guests, they talked about that, how they created a film and sent it out to film festivals. And then all of a sudden they get a distribution deal and their film's on Tubi or another streaming uh, place. So it seems like the right time and that you can actually bypass like a Hollywood or a New York because I mean our studio, we're here outside of New York City, and I remember like if you were going to be an actor, you're either in California, New York, and if you're doing regional theater, you might be in Chicago, certain places, but the I would say the arts world is truly flat in that you can have a successful YouTube channel somewhere that entertainment is not known for or a hub, and you can kind of create your own hub. So, do you see yourself ever just doing maybe like small projects and then throwing them up on YouTube, or have you ever done anything like that?
I would love to do more of it though. Um, Something I've thought about recently is because I live in the Midwest, so I'm exactly what you're talking about. I'm not in California or New York where there's a big hub.
Mhm.
So I know several people in my area who are filmmakers, and I've always wanted to just like create together and film fest it and then see what happens from there. And not even really be attached to the outcome, but just make art together. I think that's the reason I love indies so much. Is those movies are just a movie called Brigsby Bear. You should definitely watch. All those movies are just movies that people made with their friends, and those end up being my favorite movies. So I can definitely see myself going that route once I'm done with school and have a little bit more time on my hands.
Yeah, I think it's great. And that's something that we even talk about in the studio. When I did one interview, the movie was called Frogman. And it's a found footage film. And after seeing it, I was speaking to the lead actor and he was saying that they just used like high eight cameras, like stuff that you wouldn't normally think about as being something that you can actually get distributed. And they did such an amazing job, but it really was that, and they're in Minneapolis. So they were doing, they knew somebody who was into art design and special effects and really put out something cool. And I talked to my co-hosts about that. It's like, we are part of, pretty big hub of artists, and we could do something, and we did one animation that's on the website. So I definitely encourage that. And what's so exciting is that after you graduate, if you have that group of people and you make those connections, you can certainly have roles that maybe normally you would have to wait for in Hollywood. Now, speaking of roles, if you could pick, and it's going to be horror based, it has to be, but think about maybe a horror film that you really like. Could you tell me a role that would be a dream role for you in horror? It could be a film that already exists, or it could be a film in your head that you would just love to play a certain part.
Escaping me in this moment, but I read it a couple of years ago, and it's a horror, and it's about there's a character in it called Jo Beth. Beth is kind of the connection between the surreal world. And I so wish that I could remember the name. As soon as we get off here, I'm gonna look it up, and then I'll be so mad at myself. But that's my answer.
I could always add it in post edit, so don't worry. Do you have any new roles coming up or new opportunities that you would like to share with us?
So around this time last year, I was in another indie horror called Prehistoric Piranhas. I'm not sure what the distribution deal for that is going to be yet, but it is in post production. I played a character called Zoe, who was kind of not ditzy, but just a little bit more spacey than most characters that I play. I'm typically playing the motherly, mother voice of reason of the friend group type of character. So
Well, that sounds great. And just to hear that you have roles coming in and there's only more to come, I really feel like that because you're a really good actor. Is there anything that you would like to plug before we end our interview? Do you have any like social media accounts that people can follow you at? We'll also put it down in the description, which will be down below. But is there anything that you would like to plug?
follow me on Instagram. My personal is at Ellie Baris. That's my middle name. And then my self-tape Instagram, if you're interested in seeing my self-tapes and just some of my creative things that I do for fun, is Ellie Baris Tapes. So if you want to follow along, you're free to do that.
Well, Ellie, I want to thank you so much for your time. I cannot wait to see more of you on the screen. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please leave your comments down below. Do you have a question for Ellie, or do you want to talk about a horror film that you can see Ellie being a role in? Anything you want. So again, please like and subscribe. And friends, as always, thank you for coming down the rabbit hole with us.